Welcome back to the NeuroSpicy Mom Pod, your newest obsession and your favorite sensory-friendly corner of the internet. I'm your host, Austin Marie, a neurodivergent mama who's reparenting myself while raising two spicy little ones and learning how to unmask, regulate, and support our nervous systems, one overstimulated meltdown at a time. I created this space to be a landing pad for all of us who were undiagnosed, misunderstood, or just never fit the mold. This community is figuring it out together because you're not an odd duck. You're actually a swan. You just grew up in the wrong pond. In this episode, it's really personal for me because right now, in this moment, I'm deeply feeling the weight of having a strong sense of justice. And if you're anything like me, you know it's not just a personality trait. It's a full body experience. Today, we're going to talk about what it actually means to have a strong sense of justice, because on the surface, it sounds like a great thing, right? Like, why wouldn't you want to be someone who cares about fairness and truth and doing the right thing? But when you're neurodivergent, that drive can come with some serious costs. Emotional burnout, isolation, and the kind of nervous system dysregulation that can take you out for days. So let's get into it. The beauty, the struggle, and the science behind why justice feels so personal and how to protect your peace without giving up your truth. So let's start at the beginning. Why does justice hit so hard for us? Why do so many neurodivergent people feel this intense, almost physical need to correct things when something's unfair? Well, there's actually a reason for that. A few, in fact. For folks with ADHD, our brains are wired for immediacy and emotional intensity. We feel things fast and deep. That dopamine system that everyone loves to talk about, it doesn't just affect focus. It's also tied to our sense of reward, motivation, and fairness. So when something feels unjust, it's not just a thought, it's a chemical alert. It literally lights up the brain like, fix this now. And if you're autistic, that justice sensitivity often comes from a combo of black and white thinking, intense empathy, and pattern recognition. You can see when something doesn't add up, and when it involves people being harmed, especially unfairly, your brain and body go into full alert mode. It's not drama, it's not overreaction, it's how we are built. In fact, researchers have found that neurodivergent people, especially those with autism and ADHD, score higher on what's called justice sensitivity. That means we don't just notice when something's unfair. We feel personally responsible to say something or do something about it. And that might sound heroic, and sometimes it is, but it's also exhausting because the world doesn't always want to be fixed. People don't always want the truth, and systems are often built to protect themselves, not to listen to us. So we end up carrying all of this extra emotional labor, calling things out, explaining why they're wrong, and then managing the fallout of being seen as too much for caring. And if you have AuDHD, oh buddy, it's like having both alarm systems going off at the same time, but no one gave you a user manual or noise-canceling headphones. You've got the ADHD urgency, the this is wrong and we need to act immediately energy, plus the autistic intensity where every detail matters and the injustice feels like a moral wound. You're not just feeling the injustice, you're analyzing it, reliving it, trying to solve it, and feeling personally responsible for why no one else is doing anything about it. You want to fix the system, soothe the people who are harmed, and rewrite the entire policy manual, and it feels like it has to happen yesterday. And when no one listens, when people tell you to let it go or act like you're overreacting, that's when the meltdown or shutdown starts to simmer. Because you're not just upset, it feels like your nervous system is being betrayed again. It's a special kind of pain to feel like you're the only one screaming fire while everyone else is complimenting the decor. Okay, so now we know why this justice sensitivity runs so deep, but let's talk about how it actually shows up in our day-to-day lives. It can look like freezing in a meeting because someone said something untrue or harmful, and you're debating whether or not to call it out or wondering how no one else is reacting. It's watching someone get dismissed, disrespected, or gaslit, and your whole body goes into hyper alert mode. You're not okay until it's addressed. And if it's not addressed, your brain doesn't just move on, it logs it. That pattern recognition kicks in and says, this place isn't safe. This isn't just about one person being rude or unfair. Your nervous system starts clocking the environment as unreliable, unpredictable, and unsafe, especially when there are no clear consequences, no accountability, and no consistent values to help you know how to behave or belong. For neurodivergent people, especially those who thrive with structure and clarity, that kind of moral chaos feels terrifying. You don't know the rules. You don't know who to trust. And suddenly your brain is in survival mode. But instead of that being taken seriously, it gets brushed off. People say, it's just got a mean girl vibe, or that's just how that manager is. But when that person is your boss, someone who controls your job, your income, your livelihood, it's not a vibe, it's a threat. And no one teaches you how to cope with that. Or maybe something unfair happens to you and you can't stop thinking about it. Not in a petty way, but in a my body refuses to move on kind of way. You replay the conversation. You write 5 drafts of the email you never send. You vent to a friend and then immediately feel guilty for still caring. There's actually a name for that, and it's called rumination. It's when your brain loops distressing thoughts on repeat like a broken record, trying to process something that feels unresolved or unsafe. And if you got trauma, ADHD, autism, or anxiety, that loop can be relentless. I've had more than one therapist, and let's be real, I've had a lot, point out how much energy and distress I carry just from replaying things over and over. It's like my nervous system is stuck in this please make this make sense loop that no one else is even noticing. And here's the wild part. The more I think about something, the stronger that thought becomes neurologically. That's not just a metaphor, it's neuroscience. Every time you revisit a thought, especially one that's emotionally intense, you are reinforcing a neural pathway. Your brain is literally saying, oh, we're using this circuit a lot. It must be important. So it strengthens it. It makes it easier to fire, which means the more I ruminate on something painful or unjust, the more ingrained it becomes in my brain's wiring. That thought doesn't just stick. It builds a little superhighway. So now it's not just a distressing thought. It's the fastest, loudest, easiest path for my brain to take. And that's how rumination becomes a pattern, not just because we want to stay stuck, but because our brains are literally getting better at it. And when no resolution ever comes, when that justice doesn't arrive, that superhighway just keeps looping back on itself until we interrupt it on purpose with safety, regulation, or something new. For me, that something was EMDR therapy. I've done a lot of different kinds of therapy over the years, but EMDR was the thing that finally helped me interrupt that loop. It gave my brain a new route, one that didn't always lead straight back into the fire. It's not magic, but it gave me a way to process the unresolved stuff instead of just reliving it on repeat. If you've never heard of it or you're curious, definitely look into it, especially if you feel like your nervous system is stuck on a never-ending playback loop like mine was. And it's not just about interpersonal stuff. Systemic injustice hits hard too. For many of us, we grew up without the language for why things felt off, why school didn't work for our brains, why we felt unsafe in our own families, why we were always the one saying, "This isn't right," even when it made us unpopular. That history matters because now, when we see injustice happening to ourselves, to others, to the whole community, it hits the same alarm systems that was never listened to when we were kids. So we don't just notice the injustice, we carry it. And let's be real, when you're neurodivergent, people already think you're too much. So speaking up can cost you relationships, jobs, stability. And yet, not speaking up feels like a betrayal of who you are. I know this personally. I've lost friendships, real ones, and that's what makes this so painful because it's not just about being right or wrong. It's about being misunderstood in a way that costs you connection. Again, it's a lose-lose. And that tension, that's where dysregulation lives. That's where burnout is born. So now that we've talked about what injustice sensitivity is and how it shows up in our lives, let's talk about what happens when it starts to hurt us more than it helps. Because listen, caring this much, having this level of emotional radar for what's fair and not, it's powerful, but it's also exhausting. And when you're always the one noticing, the one calling things out, the one trying to fix everything, it can start to feel like your nervous system never gets a break. Even when the situation is over, your body stays in fight or flight. You're replaying the interaction. You're mourning the loss of connection. You're trying to decode why no one else seems to care. And sometimes you're the one who gets punished for caring. You're told you're overreacting, you're too sensitive, or reading into things too much. You're told to just drop it or let it go, when every cell in your body is screaming, "This is not okay." And over time, that kind of invalidation starts to wear down your self-trust. You begin to second guess your instincts. You start wondering, am I the problem? And that is so dangerous because when you are neurodivergent and the world is already constantly trying to get you to doubt yourself, this can spiral fast. Here's the part that's even harder to admit. Sometimes our justice sensitivity turns into self-sacrifice. We take on battles that aren't ours. We over-explain and overcorrect until we're completely depleted. We stay in jobs, in friendships, in systems because we feel like if we don't speak up, no one else will. And maybe that's true, but at what cost? Because the truth is, you cannot fix the world by lighting yourself on fire. You cannot heal injustice if you're constantly pouring from an empty nervous system. And maybe no one told you this before, but you are allowed to step back. You are allowed to choose which battles are worth your energy. You're not failing the movement or abandoning your values by protecting your peace. You're practicing discernment. You're regulating your nervous system. You're modeling sustainability because justice that requires your burnout isn't justice, it's martyrdom. So how do we keep our compassion without collapsing under it? How do we stay rooted in our sense of justice without letting it wreck our nervous systems? This is the hard part and the healing part, because when you've built your identity around being the one who cares, it can feel almost wrong to pull back, to not fight every battle, and to let some things go. But the truth is, you don't have to be consumed by the fire to stand for what's right. You can still be a truth teller without burning out. You can still be justice-minded and emotionally regulated. You can care deeply without collapsing under the weight of everything that needs changing. So what does that actually look like? It looks like pausing before reacting and asking, is this mine to hold? Is this safe to engage with right now? It looks like using discernment instead of urgency, choosing when and how to show up instead of feeling hijacked by the need to fix everything immediately. It means building community with people who truly see the world the way you do, so you're not always the only one screaming fire in a room full of shrugs. And it means regulating your nervous system regularly, not just after you've hit a wall. Things like grounding, breath work, movement, and genuine joy. Those aren't luxuries, they're fuel. And maybe most importantly, it looks like giving yourself permission to be a whole person, not just a warrior. Because we are not only here to fight injustice, we are here to create beauty, to rest, to be held, to build futures worth protecting. And when we do that, we're not just healing ourselves, we are modeling something radical for our kids, especially our neurodivergent kids who are watching everything. When they see us regulate instead of rage, when they see us set boundaries instead of sacrificing ourselves, when they see us choosing rest and softness, even in the face of injustice, they learn that their value isn't just in how hard they fight. It's in how deeply they care and how well they care for themselves. Because the goal isn't to raise perfectly compliant kids who keep the peace. The goal is to raise whole, empowered, emotionally aware humans who know that they are allowed to care, to speak up, and to rest. You are allowed to care deeply and also to say, not this one. You are allowed to both be righteous and resourced. You are not giving up. You are not selfish. You are not weak. And that healing ripples outward. Before we close out, I want to leave you with a few gentle, actionable tips, especially if this episode hit home and you're realizing just how loud your injustice sensitivity has been lately. First, pause and check in with your body before reacting. Is your heart racing? Are you clenching your jaw? Did your shoulders shoot up to your ears? That's your body telling you that this might not be a safe moment to jump in. Regulate first, then decide. Second, let yourself choose which fires are worth fighting. Just because you can speak up doesn't mean you have to, especially if the emotional cost is too high. Choosing rest doesn't make you complicit, it makes you sustainable. Third, connect with others who get it, whether it's a friend, a therapist, or even just listening to this podcast. Community matters. You don't have to carry your fire alone. And if this episode made you feel seen, if you thought, oh my God, it's not just me, then please consider supporting this work. All right, friends, your nervous system feels a little activated right now. Let's just take a moment to come back to our bodies. If it feels safe, take a deep breath in through your nose and let it slowly out through your mouth. Feel your feet on the ground, maybe unclench your jaw, roll your shoulders back, and remind yourself, you are safe, you are whole, and you are not alone. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It's evidence of your empathy, your integrity, and your capacity to care even when the world tells you to go numb. That's not weakness. That's courage. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I am so grateful to be walking this path with you, messy, spicy, and all. And as always, ta-ta!